Let me see if the stuff is live. Today we are on time and prepared. Beautiful. So I can hear myself and see and hear myself. Okay. Shall we proceed? There have been some issues with Twitter announcements, so the Twitter was not quite um, promoted as before, just for this time. Miss Alike, good morning. So today we're probably gonna have a slightly shorter call. We'll see. I'm not sure. Um, Let me start with the updates right away without further ado. So what you're seeing this user interface here, not sharing the extension itself, but essentially it's going to be an extension. Uh, Let me see. What's the name of the extension? What's the coded name for the extension? 1 second. We assigned it yesterday. Just 1 second. Okay. The extension is going to be called Ghost Wallet. Okay. So it's going to be like MetaMask, but not quite like MetaMask. So on MetaMask, what you can do is you can download it as an extension to your browser, Chrome browser, Mozilla, I think, and Brave, maybe some others. Then you go through the seed phrase generation, 12 words or 24 words, depending on your browser. Typically, I've been seeing 12. I know that 24 does exist, but I've never seen it myself, although, again, people spoke. And then what it enables you to do, the MetaMask, is if you have EVM chains such as Ethereum, Avalanche, etc., you can connect them. You can connect testnets. You can see the balances of your native coins such as Ethereum, AVAX, etc. You can also see the balances of tokens, ERC20 tokens. You can also see for some blockchains the balances of your NFTs, which is not for all the chains, although they do change it every time on the MetaMask side. So definitely for Ethereum, but I think that's about it. Could be wrong though, so double check if that's true or not. So essentially, MetaMask also created the thing called Portfolio, because the extension itself is too tiny for all types of things you can do. MetaMask also has the bridging capabilities, but the bridging is centralized. MetaMask also has the ability to connect your connect your um, credit card information with the partners of Transact. Last time I remember, and somebody else. And again, that is also such on-ramp off-ramp is also quite centralized. Well, clearly it is, and also requires KYC. So that's what you can do with MetaMask. Now, a couple of things. So MetaMask is a great wallet. We're not going to be criticizing it. However, Ghost also needs a wallet. Now, one caveat of MetaMask in particular is when you are downloading it, you essentially defaulting to the default uh, RPC endpoint. RPC endpoint is a point through which you are able to read and interact with the blockchain ledger. So the RPC endpoint is ingrained, it's hard coded into MetaMask. Therefore, you cannot change your RPC endpoint. Meaning, if RPC endpoint provided by MetaMask decides to go down, your whole MetaMask is down. And you can see it, you don't see it much with MetaMask, with Ethereum, but you absolutely see such things with um, like like less famous chains. Like for example, Binance Testnet. It's crazy how, and Binance is probably the second largest EVM chain out there. The testnet just loads forever. Sometimes it's very fast, but most of the times it's extremely slow. And that's what you get with hard coded RPC. Well, actually, sorry, bootnode. Now, with Ghost, you are going to be able to identify the boot node yourself. So the boot node at this point in time, we definitely have the default one, but the guys do also have a way how to become a boot node. So unless you are behind the net, in which case you won't be able to become a boot node. If you're not under the net, you can launch your own boot node. So you can have your full node, you can have your validator node, you can also have your boot node. And some participants amongst the whales definitely running their own boot nodes. So you can select which boot node you would like to rely on for the information. Um, so therefore, kind of like just to separate like the functionality, the extension in the typical user interface can transact, right? So through MetaMask you can transact. Through MetaMask you can swap, etc. Through the Ghost extension, through the Ghost wallet, you're not going to be able to transact. Now, why? Why can't we just integrate those two things together? Well, the thing is, the reason why MetaMask can transact, can send transfers and receive transfers, is due to the fact that the RPC, the RPC endpoint of the boot node is hard coded. Therefore, it does not provide much flexibility. If you want to change your boot node, you won't be able to do it. You can't. With Ghost, you can, and because of that, the Ghost wallet is just a connectivity tool. So therefore, with the Ghost wallet, you are able to connect to the Ghost chain. Once you connect to the Ghost chain, you can pretty much forget about the extension. While with MetaMask, you will need to consistently be interacting with it. So with the Ghost wallet, you set up your boot node, you connect. I cannot demonstrate unfortunately, the extension because of the sharing screen type of limitations, but you'll be able to see it quite soon yourselves. So therefore, what I'm sharing is the window associated with that extension. So the extension will also have window view, and that's exactly what I'm sharing right now. So here you have boot nodes which you can specify, etc. Add custom boot nodes if you want. There are networks that down the road will be filled. Here it's obviously the testnet and mainnet of Casper testnet and Ghost mainnet that will be reflected. So that is that's the window view of the extension that is going to be live in the next, I would say, 2 weeks, available for all. And then the second thing, the second product is what we called a light node. So this is an extension plus a window view of the Ghost wallet. This is a Ghost, how do we call it? Sorry, light node, Ghost light node. So sometimes, so it does not necessarily apply to whales from developed countries, aka America and Europe and Australia, etc. But when it comes down to developing nations, we have quite a lot, specifically Nigeria, Indonesia. Those are probably going to be the two major ones. Sometimes it's difficult to get access to electricity and internet 24/7, and that's why some users, at least that's the feedback we received, that's why some users were not able to run the nodes. Because if you running a node and your electricity is not 24/7, you will be slashed, because your machine will be just turning off. Same thing with the internet. However, so currently, while you cannot be a validator, like let's assume you're 24/7, right? With 24/7 not able to run your stuff, you still could become a nominator. So you can still be like nominating other validators. However, in order to validate or nominate, currently you need to install GhostEye through the black screen that every single validator did. So now that kind of runs into the second problem of I have to have 24/7 connectivity to be a validator, but if I just want to be a nominator, I kind of need a computer. Thing is, lots of whales some whales do not have computers, right? So they do have phones. And the question is, can they still be nominators, right? Because if you're a nominator, you can, depending on what the validator's fee is, I would say that let's assume validator fee is 10%. So as a nominator, you can still receive 90% of your staking rewards and pay the other 10% to the validator that you selected. So this light node will be especially helpful to those who do not have computers, which, based on the world statistic, is a huge freaking number, right? Because the whole Indonesia community, the whole Nigeria community, some Vietnamese community, some Latin American community, lots of African communities outside of Nigeria, who could essentially connect to the Ghost ecosystem without having a computer or without having internet slash electricity uh, stable. Now, this says Ghost DAO. It will be changed, so just ignore this logo. It will say Ghost Light Node. And here, what you can do, you can, it's an app that will be filled with more and more functionality of the Ghost DAI, such as Become Validator, Become Nominator, Blockchain Explorer will be there, it will be here, and send and receive transfers. So, for example, I think one of the whales sent me 0.05 Casper just from this slide extension directly. So this wallet had 0 Casper. So when you create a wallet, you will be presented with the seed phrase, which you need to copy down. Make sure you don't forget it. That's going to be your passphrase, essentially convertible to the private key. So I'm not going to be demoing it right now. Maybe next week, but essentially this thing is going to be also live in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be in tandem with the Ghost Wallet. So Ghost Wallet and Ghost Light Node, they're going live, and they're going live soon. And the reason why they're going live soon is because the bridging capacity is going to be enabled very soon, right? So the bridging capacity is what? Bridging capacity is going to enable you to swap your Ghost tokens from an EVM chain from Sepolia and into the Ghost chain. So for that to happen, we will have to redeploy Sepolia, Ghost DAO on Sepolia. So the whole Sepolia will be redeployed. So Sepolia had lots of bugs, leading to some users have double supply, insane supply, which led to massive sell-off, despite me telling everybody to fucking wait, but nobody fucking waited. So they just sold off. And that is a lesson for everybody who's listening. So first of all, the first lesson is don't be very slow, like be faster. But at the same time, the rule or kind of the ask was to wait for a week, which thank you guys, you waited for a week. Some people did not. So those who did not wait for a week, know that you essentially took all Ethereum. Congratulations to you. Then the question is, when Sepolia is redeployed, what's going to happen to those users? Like, are they going to get Sepolia from scratch by mining it, or are they going to buy it again because some people bought it? Are you going to split your Sepolia that you took from them because of the bug, right, or not? Because, like, is the test going to be successful or not? The way how Ghost DAO works is through. Let me actually show, because I did mention this. The way how Ghost DAO works is through uniform distribution, specifically uniform distribution, at least at the very start. So everybody needs to get a little bit, but not be a major holder, because a major holder would mean that that major holder could represent the bank, could trigger the bank run scenario. So let's assume 90% of the egos is being held by one individual, by one wallet, or like groups of wallets belonging to one individual. In that case, when that person decides to sell off, he or she will trigger like a 90% decline in the price. Then all the others will start selling as well, creating a massive bank run scenario. Now the protocol is protected against it, no problem. It's more like from the marketing perspective, like if price and APY is a marketing angle, that marketing angle is significantly lost due to a bank run scenario. So I'm not scared of bank run from the financial like aspect of like selling triggering price declines, and then because the treasury is always backed anyways. I'm more concerned about the marketing perspective, like what's the word, like perception, right, of all the other users. So when explaining this kind of game theoretical component, perhaps this is the protocol that I'm referring to, that I refer to when describing this to whales. So Tempo DAO, that is the fork of Olympus, and it has been a fork of Olympus like for the last 4 years or whatever. So whatever that number here, 1 million, 1.5, 2 million, that has always been that. So it's been fucking the same pretty much for the entire continuity. So I think what happened to lots of these forks, contingent upon these numbers are correct. Like, let's assume that these numbers are accurate. Like, these balances are on chain, etc. These numbers are not just, I just wrote them down on a website. Like these websites are actually taken kind of API and essentially Etherscan or whatever, or smart contracts too. Right. So let's assume these numbers are real. So if these numbers are real, these numbers have not been really changing much in the last 4 years. And I think the reason why that happened is obviously not enough adoption, not enough users. It has been just a simple fork, right, of Olympus. Maybe they did some switches to marketing, blah blah blah, but it has been like the same shit, right, like that Olympus did. But the problem with this thing is, I think it's just held by one wallet. I'm talking about the majority of the stake. So if you want to be the smart pants type of guy girl and like, oh, you know what, I gotta buy, like at the launch exit is gonna buy the whole fucking supply. Congratulations, you're an idiot, literally a fucking idiot, uh, because you're doing this to yourself without realizing that if you do it to yourself, you will uh, like completely put a pause to new buyers. Why? Because when you are buying aggressively yourself as number one person, uh, the DEX price will be asymmetrically increasing due to the dynamic of the DEX. And then it's going to be not attractive to other users to purchase eGhost at a super high prices. So therefore, congratulations, you just created a stagnation for yourself. So the only way for you now will be to start selling slowly. And of course, every single time you sell, the treasury makes money of you through DEX fees, because the treasury is whatever 90 whatever POL, right? Protocol owned liquidity owns the majority of the stake. However, now you essentially create the stagnation, and the protocol will get out of stagnation when you smarten up and start fucking selling. And maybe it will take 5 years for you to sell. Who knows? So before you start selling, the protocol is kind of in stagnation. Of course, unless we kind of develop a massive initial kind of liquidity uh, dump into the DEX. But when you do the initial liquidity DEX, when you're creating a pair, that pair needs to be donated to the protocol. So whoever is going to be, whether it's going to be a team or somebody else, or cumulative council, or cumulative whales, or whatever, the Ghost community at large. Let's assume like the current plan is to have 10,000 DAI and 10,000 eGhost. So the initial price is $1. So that $10,000 will be completely donated to the treasury. So essentially what happens is you generate 10,000 eGhost, you put that into the pair, you then put 10,000 DAI, also put that into the pair, and then you create LP tokens out of that, and then LP tokens you go ahead and donate to the treasury. So you won't be able to get it back as whoever. Like, like nobody was going to be able to get it. Like, it's literally a donation. So now the treasury fully owns it. So what we could do, we could increase it. We can say, okay, fine, let's do 1 million eGhost and 1 million DAI, right, into the treasury and donate it. So by that, like when people start buying aggressively, they're not going to be impacted the price that much on the DEX, and therefore, I mean, of course, if they buy with hundred millions of dollars, they're going to be impacted. But if let's assume they buy with $500,000, it's not going to be that big of an impact compared to them buying with $500,000 and there's only 10,000 eGhosts in circulation. However, if we do increase that initial balances of 1 million eGhosts and 1 million DAI, then we have to donate $1 million to the treasury. Literally donate. It's actually a donation. We won't be able to kind of get it back. So, there are pros and cons to this, but I think realistically it's going to be $10,000. I think that's going to be a realistic type of scenario, and that balance, of course, is going to be increasing with the APY. And then the question is $10,000. So if somebody puts $100,000, they just like 10x the price, more than 10x the price. And then how do we like manage it, right? How do we massage? How do we make sure that the price does not increase that much to prevent everybody else from entering? And then the answer, of course, is just to buy a little bit, buy $100 worth of it. Of course, we won't be able to control anybody. So, if you don't get game theory, you're gonna fucking pump up the price and stagnate the entire protocol. And then in that case, we can either redeploy it, which is unlikely, or just deploy on another chain, and then you start selling at some point of time. Blah blah. So those are the matters to consider, and that all goes back to the feedback regarding kind of massive Sepolia dump. Where we did it, you guys need to think how you will be redistributing your Sepolia ETH. or you don't have to again. But if you're not going to redeploy, kind of redistribute your Sepolia ETH that you got from essentially other users, um, then you need to be ready that new Sepolia Ghost DAO is not going to be as cool as the old Sepolia DAO when lots of people participated because you fucking took your ETH from them. And of course, I would understand it that ETH was taken uh, kind of fair and square, and those people who got in fair and square, no problem. But if you did get subject to the bug, and thus your supply got unnecessarily high, like unfairly high, again, the bug is the bug, right? So everything is fair. Like you didn't do anything wrong. It's more like you have to think about game theory. Like you won't be able to maintain this protocol by yourself. This protocol is working because of the wisdom of the crowd. So if you can maintain this protocol by yourself, do whatever the fuck you want. But if you want the rest of the crowd to help you maintain the protocol, then you also have to act in the interest of the crowd. The game theory here is literally like kind of be selfish, but within reason, because just like with Bitcoin, just like with everywhere else, like Satoshi could have also fucking mined everything potentially, like the whole freaking supply, and just keep mining, and not give anybody any bitcoins to mine. And then he had enough money to scale it faster than anybody else because he already had so much fucking Bitcoin. He sold it and then just kept buying machinery. But then he would own like significant majority of Bitcoin holding, and Bitcoin would go nowhere. Right? The reason why Bitcoin is going somewhere is because if Satoshi is alive, he's not touching his balance at least for now, which is I think 1 million bitcoins, which is like super like 100 plus billions of dollars of dollars that he can sell, given massive liquidity available for it. So he's not touching his balance. He kind of disappeared. He kind of made this whole thing run. So that's why people joined. However, there's still massive risk even with Bitcoin that 1 million will be touched at some point in time. So Bitcoin is not like this, like lots of people say, oh, it's purely decentralized, it's riskless. It's still with massive risk because that 1 million could be having a massive dent onto the market cap and also the price if Satoshi decides to wake up and start selling this fucking thing. So game theory, balance, etc. Make sure that everybody realizes it. And those who held up, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Um, if you do have the desire to start selling, like maybe slowly start unwinding your egos positions and turning them into GDAI. So this guide is publicly available on the blog right now. So that I demonstrated last week. So this is just a migration guide, how you can unwind your all of your positions, um, from Stinky to Ghost to Fatso. Right? So Fatso is right there. Just the guide how to unwind your Fatso position. Then you go ahead and unwind your Stinky position. Then you go ahead and unwind your Ghost position. I actually go the other way around. I actually start with Ghost first, and then Stinky, and then Fatso. And then once you get all your GDAIs, then you'll be able to swap it back, and the instructions will follow very soon as a blog post, as a announcement post in the Ghost announcement channel, and then rock and roll. We are going to take extra care for that specific swap and do it timely. Um, um, so the problem with GMV swaps, the reason why they're somewhat delayed a lot of times is people obviously how to say take abuse it, right? Uh, and they abuse it and then they disappear. So we want to time everything properly on the GMV swaps. But with GDAIs, there's no problems, right? Like you guys got your GDAIs fair and square. You're gonna get your Ethereum back. Hopefully, relatively similar amounts that you invested into this Sepolia yourselves. And if not, I do apologize right away. There's going to be a 20% tax on this. The tax will be fully going towards the faucet. That's the whole kind of purpose. So essentially, and down the road, on the new Sepolia goes down that we're going to be redeploying, I think there's going to be a 20% tax as well for every single transaction. Some people suggest a 6.9%. I'm not sure, but it has to be some type of tax. That bid-ask spread, essentially, that bid-ask spread will go all towards the faucet. The faucet is gaining more and more traction. We need to make sure that we have enough ETH. We need to make sure that we are competitive, and we are going to be taking that just for the faucet. It's going to be fully transparent on Etherscan, so we'll be able to see if the funds went somewhere else, and if they do, please let us know. But they won't. But if they do, let us know. So yeah, so that's this. So again, the new Sepolia will be redeployed without bugs. It will start from scratch, and then we need to start pumping out ETH into it slowly or whatever, pump up the price, etc. And then the new Sepolia Ghost DAO will enable us to also bridge in. So the new Sepolia will have different naming. It will have E Casper, S Casper, Casper. Those Caspers, the Casper, therefore, will be able to be bridged into the Ghost chain using, amongst others, these user interfaces that we are sharing. So that's going to be an amazing advancement for the whole Ghost ecosystem. The bridges that have been promised for many years now finally getting realized, and the reason why they're getting realized in July of 2025 versus say November 2021 when the first version of the Ghost Bridge was ready, due to the fact that the final design, Ghost Bridge 2.5, was discovered. I would even say the word discovered is the right phrase. In January of this year, end of January of this year, the council voted yes towards implementing Ghost Bridge 2.5 design in February of this year, February or March of this year. And then a couple months later, in order for us to make sure that that bridge 2.5 was live, we first had to revisit Ghost DAO, launch that, make sure there are no bugs, then launch it again on Hudi, make sure there are no bugs or fix the bugs. And now we are getting to the bridge, right? So we could have launched the bridge by itself around April, maybe, but with those UIs that you're seeing right now. However, the prerequisite for the bridge in is, of course, Ghost DAO. So you cannot launch the bridge in without the Ghost DAO. That's why that's why we call it Ghost ecosystem, because it's a multitude of products integrated together. So we have to first launch DAO, make sure it's good, and then only then do the bridge. So the bridge in is again end of bridging from EVMs to Ghost will be available end of this month / beginning of August. Then we're trying to end of August / September, hopefully, to also bring you guys the bridge out. We don't get that much feedback regarding what type of multi-chain parameters, metrics, KPIs we need to show from the Ghost DAOs. So that, of course, doesn't help much. So we'd appreciate if you guys start looking into Ghost DAO and start kind of suggesting what type of KPIs, etc. you would be nice to put. The problem with those KPIs is not necessarily even the lack of those KPIs. Like, it's not that we don't know what to put. It's more like there's so much to put. We need to be very selective. Like if you put everything, the page is going to be very slow, but B, is going to be so fucking confusing to you guys to the point where it's maybe unusable. For me personally, I'll be able to use it amazingly well, but from the product perspective, we essentially need to put just enough kind of parameters, metrics, KPIs on the page to make sure that A is fast enough, because it will be loading those values from kind of on chain, and B, that you guys as users understand what's happening and it does not overload you, right? So those are the considerations. So we can put everything, but it's not going to be good from the product perspective. So we need to, and your feedback will be very helpful. All right, so that is Ghost DAO and Bridge In. Any questions, please let me know now. Please type your questions so we are aware. While you're typing, etc., let me move on. 10 Commandments. Article has been published as well. So let me go through them really quickly. You shall seek pure Web3. So every single project you are involved in should be pure Web3. You need to analyze. If you're not sure, ask. So I think some whales on the recent Whales Wednesdays calls have been asking us some interesting questions regarding, like, some say, is AI, like, does AI trace your flows on chain, and can that be untraceable? And the answer is yes. Through Ghost, it could be untraceable, could become heuristically untraceable, probabilistically untraceable, therefore. But most projects out there, Web 2.5s, are not pure Web3. So ask questions. If you're not sure, ask. Do not spam the Whales channel with some, like, non-related products, right? Or project, whatever. But if there's if you actually curious, then of course you can, like, don't spam it, but you could request. Like, for example, there's a product completely unrelated to Ghost, but you are just curious if it's Web3 or not. How you should position this request is you kind of do your own research first, see if you are able to identify if it's Web3 or not. If you did your analysis, if it's a lazy request, like it's gonna get no fucking responses. Trust me, from the group. But if you see that there is like effort done, like you actually did some research, you understand, you went through the documentation, you read it. Maybe you didn't understand it all, but at least you tried. Like you put an effort to understand. Then you went through the GitHub. Like again, you didn't understand the code, but at least you know that there's some code. Because lots of projects, you would be surprised that 80% of projects don't have GitHub. Like Lazier does not have like open source code. It doesn't. It just doesn't. They did, but then after they got humongous funding, they closed down the source. So how can you trust Layer0 if the code is not open source? Like, yeah, if it's Web 2, absolutely. Like Google is not revealing their algorithm. YouTube's not revealing the algorithm. The reason why they're not revealing the algorithm, the more and more that I'm thinking about this, the more I believe that is because it's massively fucking biased. It's probably significantly manual. That's why they're not opening it up. But for Web3, since we are in Web3 and we're doing this for the people and we're going for the freedom of the people, of course, it has to be open source. So if something is not open source, boom, red signal right away, red flag. Do not deal with that specific product or project. So um, you can request. So therefore, put the link to the docs, put the link to the code. But then curiously ask, hey, listen, like I'm not sure, like it seems decentralized. They say they are. Like maybe Reddit says they are, or I'm not able to find any information. Can you please help me? Understand if if my investment is like pure Web3 or not. Like, should I even risk my money there? Right. So that is the first commandment. Second, you should guard anonymity. You should guard your anonymity essentially. So at any point of time, if a project is asking you for your email address, that's not anonymous. For your phone number, it's not like people say, "Oh, Telegram is anonymous." How the fuck is that anonymous if you need to share your phone number? Not only that, but before there have been some workarounds Telegram. So Telegram in 2017, for example, I mean, I would say massively responsible for the ICO craze because it was very easy to. Unfortunately, I didn't take advantage of it. Maybe we should have. Ghosts did not exist back then, of course. But in 2017, you could have spam channels like it was. You could have, I think, register with just an email, and email could be just like whatever Proton email, whatever. Right? It's like it was very easy to create accounts on TG on Telegram. Today, about 5 years ago, you could still use some fake numbers, fake phone numbers to create Telegram accounts. Because what you would do, you would buy those like one single use whatever phone numbers, you would activate a Telegram account. Telegram would send you a confirmation code. You would just confirm your identity essentially to that fake phone number, and you good. Of course, the risk is that somebody else will take that kind of recyclable phone number and kind of steal your account from you. But if you want to do some quick stuff like check out some information, you could do that. Today, that's almost impossible. Like you need to buy like a real phone number to activate your Telegram. So how is that anonymous? Because in most governments are also becoming absolutely annoying as fuck regarding attaching your ID to your phone number. And to many people's surprise, in America, you can actually acquire a phone number without sharing your ID. That is still possible. Um, while in Europe, I believe it's Europe is not even socialistic. Europe is turning, and Europeans who watch me, please forgive me, and if I'm wrong, like I do not want to hurt your feelings. Like that's not the intent. But from everything I've seen about Europe, Europe is becoming like a dictator state. Like people say North Korea is bad. I think Europe is turning into North Korea. If you say about it's like freedom, yeah, but with massive uh, control. I don't want to call Europe something worse. Essentially, the state of the affairs where the government has massive control, and when governments doesn't have that control, that control is spread towards multi national corporations, which is essentially an equivalent of the government. Government and multi-level corporations is the same exact thing, literally the same people. So the government say, no, we don't control anything. Of course you don't, because multi-level corporations, multinational corporations, not multinational corporations like Pfizer of the world, right? Mercedes of the world, BMW of the world. They are the ones who are lobbying all the laws. So they're buying all the politicians out and kind of essentially creating laws. So uh, nothing bad necessarily. I mean, from Web3 perspective, it's awful, but from life perspective, maybe nothing bad. It's just the elites are taking the reins of power back, and the people who believe to be voting for something don't have any fucking decision making. And in order to, in Europe in particular, in order to prevent uh, kind of people with consciousness to vote for to change things, there are lots of immigrants, and immigrants are a force that would vote for the current government because they're receiving subsidies due to the politicians who are currently in power. So that's the same thing they tried to do in the U.S. and they did it successfully, despite Trump trying to remove illegal immigrants. Um, Even at the pace I think he announced, 7,000 per day. It's going to be 1 million a year, but 9 million illegal immigrants entered the U.S. during previous administration. We're not trying to go political. We're just explaining that governments across the world are totally fucking things up, totally making it impossible. So in Europe, getting that phone number is challenging. In the US, surprisingly, still possible. Some countries, it's still possible. So US is actually relatively free despite all the attempts to make it less free. In some countries, you absolutely have to provide your identification to get a phone number. So Telegram is not anonymous from their perspective. But if a Web3 project is asking you for a fucking phone number or for email address, um, I mean, that's a red flag immediately. So do not share your information. And if that's required, say for sexes, it's central exchange, it's required. So obviously there's no anonymity. Like what anonymity are we talking about? And if it's not anonymous, then the question is it pure Web3 or not? The argument is like, oh, Monero is like very private and Bitcoin is not private. Bitcoin is super fucking private. Like it's extremely fucking anonymous. Like Bitcoin was built as an anonymous tool. Now Monero is like maybe let me say like like say anonymous on crack, like more anonymous than Bitcoin, absolutely. But Bitcoin is anonymous enough. Like that's the whole. Ethereum is pretty freaking anonymous. Like if you do it well, it's pretty freaking anonymous. Of course, if you connect your Bitcoin wallet to Coinbase or your Ethereum wallet to Binance, obviously you just messed up. And for some people, that's the only way to get cryptos, and that's why Ghost will exist to then break that link going forward. You should always control your keys. If you do not control your keys, if you do not control the points that represent the receipts, you should run. Like run the fuck away. Uh, Lots of projects doing that to the day, let alone central exchange. Like central exchanges is just the beginning. Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF, whatever. Like all these institutional products. Charles Schwab, I think now will enable Bitcoin purchase through Coinbase for its users. So who is the real custodian of that Bitcoin? I don't think it's going to be Charles Schwab, right? It's probably going to be Coinbase, but you won't control. The most important thing is you're not going to control it. Now I'll say, well, I don't control it for my stocks either. Like if I have a stock portfolio, I don't control my stock. I don't have stock certificates in my house. Yes, you don't, and that's a fucking problem, right? Like it's a problem for all of us. Like that's a massive problem. And crypto enable at least crypto has this built-in feature to fully control your crypto. You need to grow up, grow a pair, and figure out the ways how to control your fucking crypto yourself without trusting somebody else. Because somebody else, like, let's assume you think that you are uneducated to control your own crypto. Well, whoever you are delegating that task to control your crypto is equally uneducated as you are. So now it's your uneducation plus that person's uneducation. Let's assume there's a 10% chance somebody like you will lose your crypto. Let's assume. So 90% chance that you will keep your crypto. There's another 90% chance that that Coinbase idiot will also lose your crypto. So now it's 90% times 90%. So now it's 81% chance that you'll keep it. Therefore, your chance of losing is 19%. So you just doubled your chance of losing your crypto by delegating it somewhere else. That applies to anything where you do not hold your keys, which is very important. You should always know your risks. Always know your risks. If you're not sure, ask. For Ghost specifically, ask. For other investments you're planning to do, ask what your risks are. Like it's important. Like for example, Uniswap. Yeah, you can generate DEX fees. Absolutely. What are the risks that the impermanent loss will overshadow the cumulative DEX fees quantity that you're going to earn as revenue? So your revenue is DEX fees. Your cost is impermanent loss. When is that like essentially? I keep forgetting the word. Uh, Essentially, when is the point at which the profit turns negative? Right, the break-even point. Here we go. So, do you know that break-even point? Are you 100% sure? Can you manage the volatility? What is your risk management plan in case kind of like let's assume the break-even point is like another 5%, like for Uniswap in particular. If Ethereum goes up by another 5%, that's your break-even. What are your like? What is your course of action? Are you going to liquidate your LP position or not? Like, what are you going to do specifically in steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What are your remedies? Do you have access to cash out? Like, are you going to pay tax? Like, everything has to be written out. That is risk management. That's why those articles that we publish for the DEXs, for some people, sound extremely overbearing. And I wouldn't say that's on purpose, but the goal is to really in depth, like write out all the formulas so you can clearly see different trends, right, appearing out of pricing moving, prices moving up or down, like the DEX fees, the impermanent losses, the price impact from the slippage and stuff like that. That's done on purpose to help you guys manage those risks. Always verify, not trust. So that goes without saying. It's very similar to kind of always hold your keys and do the research. Shall not chase false profits. So lots of, including Olympus DAO, including Ghost DAO, the APY is going to look like insane. I think the starting APY that we projecting 69%. That's insane. 69% APY. Where is that seen? You need to understand how that APY is generated. Is that real or not? In case of Ghost DAO, like it's clear where it's derived from, but you need to be able to articulate to yourself what is the source of these profits. So then you can contribute and communicate it to your peers in your network, right? If you like, the best thing you can do is not bring hundreds of thousands of people to the Ghost Project. The best thing you can do is make sure you understand the whole fucking thing. Because if you do, you saved your soul, right? Like there's some religious saying like don't try to save the world, just save your own soul. And then if you save your own soul, thousands of souls will be saved. So that's what you should do. Save yourself first, and then start changing with yourself, right? False prophets, unfortunately, happen all the time in Web3. You should support open source, which we said before. Avoid centralized control. So say even with Bitcoin today, Michael Saylor in particular, good or bad, and this is a great argument that it's really freaking bad. Like lots of people say he's a cockroach for the Web3 industry. Like, yeah, the price is pumped. I'm happy for that. But what happened to what's up with everything else? Okay, price is up. Price, just so you guys know, in our opinion at least, was never like supposed to be a thing for Satoshi. Like Satoshi, we don't think Satoshi ever thought that Bitcoins would be trading on the fucking central exchanges. Yeah, peer-to-peer exchanges maybe, but like to have a price for Bitcoin, like Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. That's the whole thing. One Bitcoin is equal to one Bitcoin. That's what needs to be understood. Like it's a new economy, it's a new way of thinking about money. But Michael Saylor, for example, controls such a huge 1+% of the whole supply. If something happens to that holding, what's going to happen to the price? And then, as we described before, the bank run scenario of Bitcoin is not the problem by itself. The bank run is a problem because it creates negative perception for the entire space. Like if this 1% gets liquidated, or significant majority of that 1% of the whole Bitcoins gets liquidated, that will then have a ripple effect on all the other Bitcoin holders potentially. Maybe other Bitcoin holders will stop buying, who knows? But maybe some will actually start selling. Because in disbelief in the industry, the new people currently, like new retail users, It's very challenging to buy at $120,000 per Bitcoin. It's extremely fucking difficult, like mentally difficult. It's a very, very expensive price point. Let's assume if Michael Saylor, God forbid, if he gets liquidated because his Bitcoin is funded by debt, if he's not able to pay for interest rates on his debt, he's fucked. So if his position needs to be liquidated, and some retail users purchase 120,000, and then Bitcoin drops to say $30,000, which is extremely freaking likely, by the way, in my personal opinion. We will see that price point again very soon, in my opinion. What's going to happen to those who just lost 75% of the whole because they purchased 120, now the price is 30, they're down 75%. What are they going to think about this space? Are they going to enter this? Are they going to research the space more? Like, we need to be very careful every single time somebody gets hacked, every single time somebody loses the keys. That should not be like, oh, ha ha, or just like we'll feel sorry. That's a fucking tragedy for the whole space. We just lost a believer. That believer would have brought like humongous, number of people around him. But we know that one negative feedback is considered more heavily as opposed to one positive feedback. Right? That's our human psychology. There's Nobel prizes awarded for that type of economic research. So we have to protect every single crypto player. It's essentially our duty. If you want change, it's our duty to develop quality pure Web3 projects where people have full control of their crypto. Because God forbid they lose it. God forbid something happens. It means that like we lost one person, but we didn't lose one person. We probably lost 10 or 20 or 100 people who will not enter the Web3 space for considerable number of years. And that's how we stop kind of progress. And I think that's a plan, that's a hidden plan by these elites to create all these like Web 2.5s and like all these crypto hubs. I'm pretty sure some of them are funded by the government. Like Mount Gox hack, the biggest hack in Bitcoin's exchange history. Like, lots of people lost their funds, but that's not the case. Lots of people lost trust in Web3 because of that fucking hack. So we have to protect every single person. If you know some people in Web3, educate them. Like, that's your duty to educate them. Because if we lose them, we lose the whole network. I'm not talking about Ghost. I'm talking about whole Web3. Like, Ghost does not exist in isolation. Ghost is part of the part of Web3 revolution. Then, shall contribute for claiming. So we mentioned that before, and you should exit gracefully. So if you discover the project is Web 2.5, get out. Right? If you absolutely need to use Web 2.5, use it and get out as soon as you can. Let's assume you need to on-ramp your cash, your fiat into crypto. Do that fast and get out. Like, do that within a day and get the fuck out. Okay. So IO goes, this we covered last week. It's public now. You can take the test. One person submitted their scores earlier today. Freaking great, freaking amazing. So if you would like to go through the test, submit them. Yeah, I'm not going to share the scores obviously, but the person is heavily heavily shares Ghost beliefs based on this test. I'll just say that. The scores have been, at least to me, pleasurous. All right, so that's that. What else I would like to cover? So there's one thing I wanted to cover really quickly. I covered this with Wales the other day. That's about what we are building. What we're building as a tokenomics type of play, and it just has to sink in. It's a pretty difficult concept, and we all need to get our heads around it. So let's just cover it really quickly. So there's a disclaimer for this because we're going to cover some interesting matters. So is BTC money? That's an open question. Nobody knows the answer. There are many schools of thought. We have Keynesian school of thought, current school, or modern monetary theory schools of thought, which is close to Keynesian as well. And then we have, of course, there are nuances. Then we have Austrian, right? So essentially, the two differ. That Keynesian says money could be unlimited. Intrinsic value doesn't really matter much for the money. It's like the velocity of the money that matters a lot more. While what I said, by the way, is not accurate, so please do not judge me. What I said is bad, right? Like, we need to have way more clear definitions on the actual difference. But the Austrian economists conversely say that, well, money is should be scarce. Like economy is a theory of scarcity. So it's a theory of trade-offs, right? So that's a science of trade-offs. Thus, money will have to be scarce. So as a consequence of that theory, um, gold, to some extent, silver is actual money. Fiat is completely non-money because it can be printed uncontrollably. It's extremely difficult to mine gold uncontrollably because even if there is a massive supply of gold somewhere, massive reserves of gold, you still have to extract it. And for every single ounce of gold extracted, you have to provide certain resources, which is money. So therefore, kind of the supply of gold is deflationary from that perspective. Bitcoin, obviously, from the Austrian perspective, is also clearly money. Ethereum is not money that much because, well, when Ethereum was proof of work, it was money as well. With proof of stake, now why the fuck the money is just minted out of thin air? What the fuck's that? There's no proof of work. Same thing for Ghost. Ghost will not be money from perspective of Austrian economies because we have proof of stake, similar to Ethereum. Okay, so question is, what is Bitcoin money still from perspective of Keynesians? The answer is absolutely not. So this gentleman here, one of the proponents of modern money theory, has an interesting theory, interesting quote. I sent this video to everybody in Wales to watch. If you guys watched it, great. And there are some interesting thoughts, and there are definitely some controversial thoughts. The interesting thought is anybody can print money. It's the money, like if you need to make sure that you create the guarantee for the money to be accepted. That's why it's going to be money. So I think this is good. But then they extend that theory further. They say, well, since government is one of the biggest consumers, money was like the real money was always used in like taxation. So like unless uh, government a government can take money as a tax, that money is not money because because again the government is the biggest consumer, and since the government is the biggest consumer, they consume taxes, and since taxes are to be consumed, say bitcoins, you cannot pay your tax in bitcoin, so bitcoin is not money, right? But dollars, you can pay them as taxes, so dollar is money. Uh, if that sounds stupid, that's not my thoughts. That's what this fucking guy's saying, right? Amongst other things. And the other thing he said that money is always debt, and that's what Keynesians think as well. So money is created by debt. So he's explaining how things work today. Central banks do not create money; it's banks that create money. So Goldman Sachs, when they issued debt, they just boom created money. Lots of people don't know that. So, but Bitcoin is not debt, so Bitcoin therefore is not money, and that's bad. So that's literally what this fucking guy says, right? Like it's not my thoughts. That's what this guy says. So now the question is, can we try to turn Bitcoin into money through Ghost? And that is an interesting discussion. So can we create a structure where Bitcoin is money? That's again, that's an exercise. Let's go through this. So the current Ghost 2.5 bridge architecture works like this. You're the user with the EVM wallet. You send your ABC token to the DEX, get your DAI. Then you swap your DAI for eGhost. Then you go to the Ghost DAO. You wrap your eGhost into Ghost, right? With sGhost on the way as well, whatever. Then you send that Ghost to Gatekeeper. So these are literally the steps you need to take to turn your ABC into Ghost token and then bridge that, right? So we can automate them on the back end. All right, so cool. So you just turn your ABC into Ghost token. Congratulations. And then that Ghost token will get minted to the Ghost coin by the WASM on the Ghost chain. And then if you want to go to EVM2, you burn your Ghost coin on the Ghost chain. You get your Ghost token in the Gatekeeper, which will spin it into your EVM wallet number 2 on another chain, for example. Then you unwrap through the Ghost DAO your Ghost into eGhost. And then you swap through 2 swaps from eGhost to DAI on the DEX, and then from DAI to XYZ. So that is the path for you to go from ABC on chain 1 into XYZ on chain 2. All right, that's cool. That's the EVM. Now the question is, how does the Bitcoin bridge would work? How would the Bitcoin bridge work? So the Bitcoin bridge would work like this. So we have UTXO chain, Bitcoin blockchain. So you have BTC, but they don't have smart contracts. So there's no such thing as gatekeeper. Okay. So what's going to happen is that Bitcoin would then be wrapped into GBTC by the help of validators. And then there's going to be internal Ghost DEX or lending borrowing protocol like Aave So that GBTC will then be converted to the Ghost coin inside of Ghost chain, and then you can bridge it out similarly how I just showed it into the EVM. Right? So that's how this works. So now the question is this: when you went ahead and locked your Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain, you minted GBTC. Well, validator said minted GBTC for you. So therefore, GBTC is a receipt to receive Bitcoin. So GBTC therefore is debt. So now GBTC is I owe you Bitcoin. Who owes it? The protocol, right? So there's no third party that is centralized third party. Rather, there's a third party which is decentralized, the protocol. So the question is, this activity of converting Bitcoin into a receipt of GBTC, does it make GBTC money? So therefore, did we just create money out of this? And just quick kind of intellectual discussion here. That's why we have a disclaimer. So if DAI is a example of a US dollar, right? So it's a synthetic US dollar, which is inflationary because it can be minted uncontrollably. eGhost, in that case, is also inflationary to some extent. So eGhost cannot be minted inflationary without kind of uncontrollably. There's a control, there's a limitation. The limitation is coming from the treasury reserves. So at some point of time, when the treasury reserves hit the quantity equal to the number of ghosts in circulation times 1, so let's assume there's 1 million ghosts in circulation. The floor price is $1. So it means that if the treasury has $1 million, the APY stops. eGhost cannot be minted anymore. Because if it is minted, now the floor goes below $1. So that cannot happen. So that's the limitation. So let's assume the treasury has 1.5 million, and there's 1 million eGhost in circulation and $1 floor price. At that point of time, there's another 500,000 in treasury because treasury has 1.5 million, right? So 1.5 million minus 1 million eGhost times $1, you have another 500,000 extra reserves in the treasury. So that extra $500,000 in reserves is responsible for the APY. So the APY can still be possible because there's more money in the reserves. However, once the supply of eGhost reaches 1.5 mil and the treasury stays the same $1.5 million as well, that's it. There's no APY anymore. The inflation stops. So Ghost dollar is inflationary, but inflation with an upper ceiling. Okay. Now, sGhost is therefore that staking type of mechanics, which is responsible for, it's kind of equivalent to the high yield savings, of course, with the disclaimer, right? Nothing we do here is security. Everything is utility. But if you do the kind of like real world examples, maybe sGhost could be maybe compared to the high yield savings account, where the high yield savings account is producing the APY, and the APY is completely equivalent to the interest rate. So the APY in the economy, 69%, the APY in the economy, the inflation in the economy is 69%. So the interest rate is also 69%. So they match perfectly. And essentially that's the bank, high yield savings bank, where the inflation perfectly matches the interest rate. Now, then the question is, what is Ghost token? So Ghost token is then a reserve asset. So the quantity of Ghost token does not change. It's the price that changes in response to the APY increase. So that's a reserve asset, similar to say gold, similar to say silver, similar to say Bitcoin. And thus, Ghost token is deflationary. That's important. So eGhost, sGhost, inflationary with an upper ceiling. Ghost token is deflationary. But then what happens is, so one Whale mentioned an interesting concept. So if you decide to stake your Ghost token on a Uniswap, then you get reserve asset plus a dividend. So that reserve asset can earn dividend as well. However, that dividend is the DEX fee minus impermanent loss. So you can still risk not earning your dividend. And actually not only not earning your dividend, but actually kind of losing, right, on the impermanent loss if the impermanent loss is greater than the cumulative DEX fees. However, once you bridge your Ghost token into the Ghost chain, you get your Ghost coins. Now, Ghost coins is also a reserve asset. However, you can stake your Ghost coins as a validator, or you can stake your Ghost coins as a nominator and receive dividend in a form of staking rewards on the Ghost chain. So therefore, essentially Ghost coins cannot drop, like say on Uniswap Ghost token, right? Like your impermanent loss can actually overshadow your cumulative DEX fee, so you can actually go down. If you stake your Ghost coin inside of Ghost chain as a nominator validator, the worst thing you can do is earn no staking rewards, so your dividend is zero. That's the worst case. Or the best case, you actually earn dividend on the reserve asset. So Warren Buffett likes to say that gold is a bad investment because gold does not produce anything. And that's why he goes for stocks, because stocks can actually produce stuff. But we create a unique reserve asset, which is deflationary, which can also earn an actual dividend. So imagine gold earning dividend. Not gold mining stocks earning dividend, gold itself earning dividend. Like gold breeding more gold, right? That's literally what we are doing here with gold. So we have a deflationary asset that also has a dividend. And then going to Bitcoin, GBTC, which is a receipt for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is also deflationary, thus GBTC is also going to be deflationary. And then that GBTC can be used as collateral on, say, Ghost Native Boron Lending Protocol to get Ghost Coin loan. So then the question is, this mechanic, I would like to cover it one more time next week, but this mechanic, for all of us to think, does this mechanic turn Bitcoin into actual money from perspective of Keynesians? Did we just turn Bitcoin into debt? So Bitcoin is money from Austrian economic perspective. That's good. We know that. But from Keynesian economists, can we also get them on board? Because GBTC is debt. It's a receipt for Bitcoins. And then that GBTC receipt is used as collateral to get a deflationary token of Ghost Coin. So think about that. You got your Bitcoins with deflationary asset. You then generated debt receipt by minting GBTC, which is also deflationary. You then went and used that deflationary asset as collateral to mint another deflationary asset that also generates dividend. So from real life perspective, think about this. You have silver. You use silver as collateral to get gold that produces more gold. That's what we're doing here. That's up for discussion. I don't think you have any questions, so we'll pause here. Let us know if you have any questions in Wales. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.